Just when I thought this pod couldn't get any better, the guys go find a retired theology professor and start blowing my mind with all this context and history and framing and nuance and chronology. This episode is fraught with context. That's what's going on. It's fraught. It's hermeneutical. It's, I don't know. It's a lot. And I am here for it. Welcome to the Benedictine Thought and Action podcast. We are beginners in the Benedictine way, so we have to listen to the voice of wisdom. Otherwise, we're sunk. Join John and Jason as they learn to become more aware of God through living hospitably in community. William Portier is a Roman Catholic theologian who specialized in the history of American Catholicism. He was one of the architects of the doctoral program in theology at the University of Dayton. And that's how Jason got to know him. In fact, Dr. Portier is the reason Jason got into a doctoral program at all. So whether he likes it or not, Jason gets to be Jason because Dr. Portier is Dr. Portier. The guys are interviewing Dr. Portier today because nearly every Mount Marty student for the last 6 or 7 years has encountered his teaching. Several years ago, he published a textbook called Tradition and Incarnation. Mount Marty students use parts of this textbook to learn how to think philosophically about what it means to be human, about how religions help us express our humanity in meaningful ways. In today's interview, the guys are going to introduce you to Dr. Portier. They're going to talk about teaching theology to an undergraduate population that is changing rapidly. Along the way, you might get a sense of just how scared Jason is to use Dr. Portier's first name. Since I don't yet have a body, so I can't be punished, I'm going to go ahead and call him Bill.
I thought maybe you could open, if you're willing, to just kind of tell us your story about how you arrived to where you're at this point in your life. And now I know that that's like an epic journey from a beginning long, long ago in the mists of time. But like what what are we gonna say? He was the Marianne Spear and Chair, and then Toronto and a red guitar after Vatican II or something like that. My knowledge of your bio is like actually fairly thin. Um, so I'm glad you're laughing. Uh, I just think it would be interesting if we understood a little bit about where you come from and how you got here.
Okay, so I came from New Jersey. Um, I was I was born in Englewood Hospital in Tenafly, New Jersey, because Tenafly didn't have a hospital, and Tenafly, I don't know, has about maybe 3,000 people. I'm not sure. It's pretty small. Went to Mount Carmel School, and while I was in 6th grade or something like that, they used to send these vocation directors around. And so one of them recruited me. And when I was 14 years old, my poor parents, I can't believe I did this to them. I just really can't. Mom, I'm really sorry. I, my parents had to take me over to Newark Railroad Station, Penn Station in Newark. And I went to Alabama, to a place called Holy Trinity, Alabama, which is about 25 miles across the Chattahoochee River from um, Columbus, Georgia. And Columbus is in the central time zone. Can you believe that?
No,
It's very, it's really hard to imagine. But anyway, so when you drive there, it's a straight shot from the Midwest, from like Ohio. It's very bizarre. Anyway, so I was in the seminary for 14 years. No, 11 years. I'm sorry, 11 years. Longer than most priests.
Mm. Mm.
And so that's where I learned Latin and Greek and Hebrew, stuff that I know pretty much.
From 14 years old. So
No, 11 years. So I left before I took final vows when I was the year before I was supposed to be a deacon. So, and while I was there, I took philosophy courses at Catholic University. I took great philosophy courses. Then I did all kinds of things in the summers. Like I spent one summer in Los Angeles working in East LA, uh, refereeing basketball games. And I spent one summer in DC when I saw Stokely Carmichael walking by.
wow.
Um, no, I didn't see Stokely. I saw H. Rap Brown.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember him, but he was like one step below Stokely Carmichael. I worked in Cleveland in the, inner city in Cleveland.
This is all through the church?
Yeah, we had parishes in all those places.
Hmm.
The community had parishes. And then when I when I left for a number of reasons. Two main reasons. One, I loved girls,
That'll do it.
and the other one, things were kind of pretty shaky. They didn't really know what the hell they were doing.
Yeah.
That's part of why I wrote the book.
Right.
Um,
So what year were you left?
I left in 70 and just was out in the world.
Thrown into it. Yeah.
So when you say things are shaky, what do you mean?
It was really hard to find a job because the economy was not very good in those days. And anyway, it was so I taught. I finished my master's degree. I had like 1 year to go to finish my master's degree, and then I got a job teaching high school. Taught high school for a year. Escaped to graduate school at Toronto. Came back because I ran out of money. I had to go home and wait and bus tables at the Washington Hilton for a week to make some money to go back during reading week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And then I came home for 2 years and still wrote papers and stuff because we had a kind of freewheeling doctoral program. So you organized your own course of study.
Yeah.
And so we had these things. Instead of courses, we had themes. And a theme could, like you could do a theme on something like being in time.
Yeah.
Or a bibliography. You just had to come up with some way to evaluate your knowledge of this thing. It was a great time. It was really good. Anyway, so then I got out of there, and I couldn't stand. I taught high school for 4 years. I taught in a Marianist high school in Cleveland, Cathedral Latin,
Hmm.
which was awful because it was, I don't know if you know anything about education in those days, but it was chaos, and there were no desks and no classrooms. You had lounges. You had religion class in the lounge.
Just talking about ideas.
And so, yeah, not talking about anything.
Just rapping with the kids.
Out of control.
Wow.
And they hired me as part of their attempt to bring the school back.
Hmm.
They used to paddle students and things like that. I mean, it was really bad. So then I went back to graduate school a year after that, 2 years after that. And then I was chair of the theology department at St. John's College High School. And then I finished there, and I couldn't stand teaching high school anymore. My last job teaching high school was with in a girls' high school, and I had a freshman homeroom. That was a piece of work. And so I just couldn't stand teaching high school anymore. It was like working with your mind in first gear,
Oh, wow. Okay.
trying to drive,
Yeah.
on the first gear. And so this friend of mine that I had been in the seminary with, who was now a doctor in Emmitsburg, he told me that they had a job at Mount St. Mary's, and the only thing I knew about Mount St. Mary's was supposed to be a very conservative place.
Mm-hmm.
And I had all these heretics for professors, and they wrote me letters, and so I figured, what the hell, I'll try it and see what happens. And I went into this guy's room at the Mount, and he had all Gregory Baum and Leslie Duart's books all over his shelves, and so that worked out okay.
Yeah.
And then I stayed there for 24 years and taught there. Was part of one of the greatest faculty intramural basketball teams ever. I don't know. Are you getting totally ready to go to sleep yet, or
No way. So this is when so we can just take a break from bio and say this is when you wrote Tradition and Incarnation, which for our listeners.
I wrote it before 1994,
Mm-hmm.
published in 94.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably wrote it around 1990 to 1994.
Yeah.
Something like
But you're teaching at Mount St. Mary's that whole time.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And after that, and then I taught it at Mount St. Mary's.
Yeah. And the textbook has been used, fairly broadly, I think. I don't know if you've made millions off of it, but you've.
You make a hell of a lot more than people who write things now.
Yeah, sure.
Like whatever they gave me there, which I didn't think was very much, I still get royalties. I get a couple $100, sometimes $3, twice a month, twice a year.
Hmm.
For the other books that I've written for Catholic U, I don't get anything.
Yeah. So our students, as I've told you, our students, some of our students have studied the whole book. Some of the students, I like divided up. I just did Intro to Theology last semester, and we studied the first half of the book. And then all of our students here read the first 2 or 3 chapters of the book as a part of their core sequence. So, I mean, we can carry on with the biography, but this is as good a time as any to talk about those first 3 chapters. The reason we use it in our sequence is we want to encourage the students to examine their lives, focus on their own experience, and to see if that corresponds with anything that philosophy and religion have to propose to them. And so, the students, I mean, tomorrow I'm going in to teach the chapter on the great questions, and then in a couple weeks I'll do the chapter on philosophy. So,
Could you just for us, could you say something about what's the concept of the book? What's basically what's your elevator speech for the book for those who haven't read it?
That everyone, that tradition is what's there before you get there.
Mm.
And everyone, it's part of everyone, whether you like it or not. And it's what makes everything possible. It's what limits you, and it's what makes everything possible that you do. Um, I don't know. That was one of the greatest courses that I ever took in my life. These 2 courses on hermeneutics that I took at Catholic U. One was with Hans Georg Gadamer, and the other one was with this crazy guy, John Smolko, who was, I would say, was the greatest teacher I ever had.
That's awesome.
He used to make us negate everything he said. Like we had to write him 1 page every week, which negated everything that he said, that, because he was doing this Hegel stuff.
Yeah.
so
He was awesome.
your take on, I mean, the way you use tradition in the book, I think there's this, I remember from being in your classes, there's this quote you would use from Gadamer, but I can never just like repeat it verbatim. So about the flickering.
Yeah.
Well, can you give us that again?
I could have a couple of years ago,
Oh, okay.
but
We're
as I recall, it's like in the middle of the book somewhere, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Here, you guys keep talking. I'll find it.
We're in the,
Oh, a human subject
yeah.
is flickering in the circuits of history.
Yes, the human subject is a flickering in the circuits of history. Yeah. So, but I guess I never realized you actually studied with Gadamer. That's incredible. Okay. So then that's the first half of the book, right?
At Mount Marty, we are especially interested in how the first part of Bill's book can help students pay closer attention to their restless hearts. The book also helps our students think through the ways different traditions shape their view of the world. As Bill says, tradition is what's there when you arrive. But when you're 18 years old, it's not always so easy to think about this. Most of us need help recognizing the world around us. It's patiently waiting for us to pay attention to it. But our wits are kind of dull. Learning to pay attention to the traditions that make you possible is an essential part of sharpening your wits. In other words, this book is really helpful when it comes to waking up your consciousness. Maybe I should read it.
Second part is Incarnation, because back in those days, we were hearing all these sermons about how this really didn't exist, and you know, so it seemed to me that these were the 2 really important things.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my experience so far teaching the second half of the book has not been that our students have trouble with the incarnation or anything like that. In fact, most of the students at our school, their kind of whole deal is like, well, yeah, obviously Jesus is God and he rose from the dead, and I don't really know if we need to take a class on it. Like, it doesn't matter. Isn't it obvious that God became a human, and isn't it obvious that he died and rose again? Like, so it's just interesting to me that you part of your motivation in writing this was to deal with people who were, how would you want to say it? Using historical research to basically discredit the fundamental, like, core of Christian.
It wasn't so much they were using it, was that it did this to them,
Ah, okay.
right? Somebody in New Testament class told them they had to read this shit,
Yeah.
and they read it, and like Boltman. What do you do with Boltman? Right?
That was my experience with Boltman.
Boltman had
So I put it away.
uniquely Lutheran subjectivity. So for Boltman, faith is not supposed to be rational. And if it's not rational, then that's good.
Mm.
And the more rational it was, the more not faith it would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know that his students lasted very long. Like, it had to be a kind of unique thing.
Lasted doing what, though? What do you mean?
Lasted being Christians, having faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was so kind of like the more skeptical they were and still believed, the better they were.
Sure.
The more
Because Boltman is demythologizing the New Testament, right? We're reducing and reducing until we've got what the proclamation of the gospel, and that's about it. We're taking all the magic out because we're modern people now. So you're saying they reduced until they reduced themselves out of Christianity?
yeah, that was my experience. I don't know, why was I saying that?
I was just asking about, like, where your students were at that prompted you to focus on the Incarnation, and you said they,
It was very different. So that's like one of the things that you asked me, like, how do students change?
Yeah.
Or how to so students were incredibly kind of like overwhelmed with Christianity. They wanted to escape from it.
Hmm.
It was nothing like they changed like every 10 years. You will notice this. Maybe they change sooner now, but they like generational characteristics. That's why I wrote about evangelical Catholics and
Right.
the generations, all of that stuff. Like each generations have tasks kind of that they need to do. And so the people that I wrote this book for no longer exist. Whether it connects with any of the people that exist now, maybe it does. I mean, some of these things are perennial and some of them are very generation specific.
Yeah. I think that in my experience, several elements of the book have helped my students articulate their lives better, and have helped them see the connection between their academic pursuit of philosophical knowledge and their personal lives. Like, that's been good. But I think you're right that I don't teach people that are overwhelmed by Christianity and want to escape it. Yeah, that's an interesting sociological shift. I don't even know. Like, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just
Like,
thinking by analogy, I've been teaching Synoptic Gospels class. And I think even when I was in college in the early mid 2000s, we heard about the synoptic problem and Q and were mostly scandalized. Just like couldn't believe no one had told us about this before.
Well, we were scandalized too. We were-
Right. Well, but my students, I'm trying to get them to be scandalized, but they seem scandal proof. They hear it and they're just like, all right, sounds good.
man, nothing's amazing to them.
And they can really hold. I have been an evangelical Christian or whatever kind of Catholic my whole life, and this is new information, and I will learn it for this class. And well, anyway, thanks, professor. Like that's
Yeah.
there's just no like it's a real a profound lack of the existential crises I was having on a monthly basis throughout my theological education.
Yes, yes. So I was conditioned, socialized to teach people, like, at least half of my class was in existential crisis.
Yeah.
And so you had to, but what gave my students existential crisis might not be what does it now. I don't know.
When I it seems, I think, bad to say it this way, but like when I meet a student who's in existential crisis, I'm like, "Phew, finally, okay, here's one.
Where'd you come from, dude?
Yeah, what's going on with you? Because they and that's not to say that they're not curious about life necessarily, but I still don't know how to figure it out. Some of it's dispositional, sure,
Sure,
right?
and I've just got so many theories. I think we bat them back and forth all the time. Like how did we get here?
Yeah. Some of it's dispositional. I'm a I'm on my what is the twice born person, like the William James or whatever. I'm on my 32nd birth or something, I'm always going through
You're
like
telling me.
right. But so some of it's that, but some of it does seem to be generational, and that's harder for me to measure, to figure out. And I suppose you probably started to see some of that maybe at Dayton. So after Mount St. Mary's, you head to Dayton in the very early 2000s, right?
Yeah, like 1999 was my first year there.
Okay. Okay.
But I was at the Mount and Dayton for 3 years together.
Yeah, they're
Like, one semester, one place. The provost at the Mount was getting really pissed.
yeah.
She just died. This is very sad.
Like, even by the time you get to Dayton, do you think the students are not the students that you wrote to? Or is that too
There's probably still some of them around because it's only 5 years.
Yeah.
Um, but, the further you go, the fewer there are.
Yeah. When did you stop teaching undergrads?
I think the last undergrad I taught was 2008, but that was like, I hadn't taught any for a while.
Ah.
And
Okay. John, do you want to ask a question, or you
Yeah.
want to go with the next one?
Well, I'm just curious about so you framed your coming to Mount St. Mary's as you thought you had heard it would be conservative, and you found out it was much more moderate, I'm assuming. Or at least maybe there was a mixture of people. And what were your impressions?
it was, yeah, it was not as I thought it was. It got more and more, right wing as the years went by.
So through the 80s and 90s, you're really in the midst of the conservative versus liberal aftermath of Vatican II.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and then you end up after that period and at Dayton. Some people would call it a super liberal school. Other people would say there's
Well, in my I don't know what you know about me, but I am on the the editorial board of Communio,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like the opposite of theological studies.
Mm-hmm.
I also write things in theological studies, and so I try not to be in this situation, but it's pretty hard to avoid it. Like you do what you can, but
Especially when those are like preconceptions that people have about you or about the place that you work or whatever. It's hard to escape. It's hard to escape that because you become associated with a certain way of looking at it. So you've got to engage with those conversations sometimes. Right.
alas, yeah,
Yeah. Unfortunately. But I think I suspect that's why the three of us are getting along so well. Because we don't really like accepting those categories as they've been handed over to us.
Yeah.
probably we're contrary
Yeah. Well,
contrarians.
we got to find a way to say that makes us sound really cool, though.
Yeah.
Right. Right. We just love a nuance. We love to nuance things, don't we?
Okay. What about I don't know, Dr. Portier, if you remember you telling me like about students who came to you with like personal things, and I thought, well, he's my teacher, so I can also talk to him like he's my dad or something like that, or maybe it was that you were like, why do these young men always talking to me about their problems with their dads or something like that? I don't know if you remember that, but this isn't supposed to be one of those questions where I ask you to be like too personal or anything like that. But I did ask you about the relationship between academic theology and Christian practice. And how do you understand the relationship between your role as an academic theologian and then your role as a Christian believer?
Well, it's very complex, because you get attracted to theology, or at least most sane people do, because they're interested in it, and they want to find out about it. And so, but then it's very complicated because, like we were talking about before, when you study Koban, you think you're going to learn something about the New Testament, and then you learn this, and it says that none of this stuff is true, um, and so like the last 3 or 4 times I taught Christology to graduate students, I taught the new consensus.
Mm.
Do you know what that is?
I know a little bit.
It's all these English guys. They're evangelical English guys,
Mm.
and they're like Richard Bauckham,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
but but
Noted biblical theologian.
yeah, but who defends the historicity of the New Testament,
Yeah.
and the you know what's his name's the guy in Eusebius, that tells us who wrote the
Mm-hmm.
books of the New Testament, and
I just popped out I should remember the name, but I don't.
defends he defends his God. You're too young to forget that.
I've got other reasons for forgetting.
But so I don't know. So it's a very complex thing. I don't know what else to say about it. It's
Seems
it's existential.
Yeah, seems to me that a lot. I think everyone who studies theology comes to a point where your study maybe affects your faith in some way, and maybe also your practice. But then to be a teacher of it adds another layer of complication.
Mm.
It can lead to some people thinking that the things that they know are the classic problem that even Thomas recognized, the classic problem of thinking, well, if everyone should know their right, their duty to their Christian faith is to know as much about theology as I do, or at least honor me for knowing as much as I do. And of course, Thomas argued against that. So I wonder how being an academic specifically has complicated your relationship with faith and practice, and how you've seen that worked out, and having
Well,
so many PhD students as well.
since I'm a layperson, I don't really have very much of a problem with that because I have the great experience. I always tell women that, they always say they're invisible in theology. Like the guys that work in my parish, they're Argentine priests, IBEs, these guys.
Hmm.
They they teach theology. They have a theologate down in Chillum. They wouldn't talk to me about theology if I paid them.
Hmm.
So I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Like, um, it's not really, I don't know. It's amazing.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. I think the fact that I'm teaching theology, that I did all this work, whatever, I know a few things, has actually just helped me just be comfortable sitting in the pew and being just a part of the action. And
Yes.
I don't.
Yeah, I have no desire to
Yeah.
be a reader or a Eucharistic minister or
Yeah, and then you add to that, like, the fact that I grew up, as you know, I grew up as a pastor's kid, and I just, like, being just a person in the pews, I really I dig it, and I understand, like, I think I understand what you're saying, like, you just don't feel like you have, um, a role to play. Uh, you're allowed to do your theology, and no one is really paying attention.
I'm not allowed to do it. But, like, it's not, uh, no one's interested in it.
Sure. Yeah, so you can just do it. Seems interesting to you. Right, right. Occasionally, I get asked, uh I was just at my daughter's, first confession retreat, and the director of religious ed for our parish asked me, in front of all of these blessed children, whether running in the house is a sin. And somehow that's what I've been asked for. Running in the house is a sin.
Running in the house? Oh, dear.
So, I thought this was a terrible question, but that's about all I get tapped for in my parish as a theologian, is
Yeah,
yeah,
that doesn't surprise me in the least.
yeah,
And I find that, like, often I'm a kind of threat to these guys, and so I just kinda keep my mouth shut.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
I get that. Interesting. I just told her that Thomas doesn't write about that, so I had no idea what to say.
Well, don't hoot her.
you just kind of pushed her down the road.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I'm curious. I know that you've written a lot in various more lay publications about the modern church, and about sort of doing some maybe even theological reporting on things. Where do you feel like the global church stands with Pope Francis, and how does that relate to how the American church has continued to develop in some interesting ways?
I thanked Jesus that I lived to see Pope Francis exist. I'm gonna be incredibly sad when he dies. Um, that's a hard question.
What do you think Francis's greatest contribution is? What do you appreciate the most about him?
I don't know what word to use to describe it. I would say that he's holy, and then they would say, "Well, yeah, but Benedict was holy. John Paul II was holy." I don't know. He's pastoral. That's a good word.
Yeah.
for him.
I think that was my response to my own question in my head was, I think it's his disposition. His disposition, his orientation towards the church has been really life giving in my humble opinion.
Yeah. So the United States, I don't think the United States is very close to the center of the church of the world. It's a kind of off to the side thing. It's very wealthy. I mean, it's not any kind of news to say that the future of the church is not in the West.
Right. Sure. Well, and also I think for a long time, like most Catholics, American Catholics have taken their political views probably more seriously than their Catholic identity, and I think that kind of makes it difficult for global Catholics to get on board with us. So, and I guess I wonder, do you agree with that, and do you see that getting better or worse, or just staying the same?
I agree with it. I just wrote a chapter. Do you guys know who Joe Kenichi is?
No.
He writes a lot about spirituality. He's an old Franciscan. He's not a conventual. He's a holy name. I don't know what you call him.
No of them, or see one of the blue ones or the brown ones?
He's brown.
Okay, so just probably a no of them, or
He's old. He's an old Franciscan.
Huh.
Anyway, it's his. They're giving him a Festschrift, and I wrote a chapter for the book, and the chapter that I wrote was on Americanism at 125.
Mm-hmm.
Then the inaugural address happened, and he actually said manifest destiny, and and I mean it was, and then what's her name, the lady from Canada, the MP, gave the op-ed in the Washington Post where she talked about manifest destiny 2.0. And so this was like they were putting it in my lap.
Mm. Mm.
So I wrote a new conclusion to this Americanism at 125, but it's pretty one of the really good books that I'm reading right now is Robert Bella's biography. Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
He wrote American Civil Religion in 1968.
Yeah.
And which is one of my, guiding texts. Now I forget why I was going to say that.
His biography, Americanism.
I don't know. I'm
It's okay.
sorry.
No, don't be.
now we need Jason to forget something so that we can all three have lost our train of thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
it's
okay.
the sleepy part of the afternoon.
Yeah.
To be clear.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, we might want to rethink our interview scheduling.
Yeah.
So I think that we don't want to edit in our description of Americanism. But whoever ends up listening to this, I'm pretty sure will have no idea what Americanism is.
Well, actually, it's in their blood.
Well, yeah, but as you know,
The Americanism is the faith, the belief that there is a connection, probably a messianic connection between America and the church
Hmm.
and Catholicism. And that God has chosen, I mean, no American president ever said that before. Never.
Yeah.
No one would have dared to say that. But that's like about as Americanism as you can get.
Yeah.
And so Bella's great contribution is that he talks about Americanism, not Americanism, but American civil religion as subject to a higher authority. That's the genius of Bella's conception. So that America is always subject to some higher judgment. It doesn't judge nothing, but that keeps going away. And so we have to keep getting it back. But it's the only hope. Like these kinds of speeches are really scary to me. Like there's nothing that judges us. Like if we go take over Gaza and build a hotel there,
Right.
there's nobody to tell us that that's not good. But the heyday of Americanism was 1890s. That's what American expansionism, the Spanish-American War, all the rhetoric of the Spanish-American War was the ideology of political Americanism, and then that got transplanted into the church. And the immigrants were starting to get socialized, that they were, getting approved
Mhm.
by the rest of the country. They were trying to prove that they were Americans. So anyway, the guy that I wrote my dissertation about was Isaac Hecker, and he was what I call a Yankee Catholic.
Okay, say more.
He was in New England. Well, he wasn't. He was from New York actually, but he went to Brook Farm, and he was the baker at Brook Farm with Emerson and Thoreau. And
Gotcha.
his big goal in life was to convert Emerson and Thoreau.
That didn't work out too well.
That didn't work out.
So
Yeah.
I just want to clarify something. You're saying in Bella's book on civil religion.
No, it's not a book. It's just an essay.
Oh, essay. Sorry.
It's what's called in the field a seminal essay.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're allowed to use that anymore.
Yeah, we are.
Well, no, I had a journal. Part of the revisions they wanted was please do not use the word seminal.
Oh, interesting. What was their reasoning?
There was no reason. Just said it's unnecessary to use this word. There are other words you can use. Please don't use this word.
Oh, all right. Wow. News to me.
Yeah.
What journal was this?
I cannot remember. But evidently they just did not like seeds. So
I think that's what I'm getting. Yeah.
yeah. Well, gardens, nothing.
I guess probably roots, and so probably shouldn't say radical. We got to start a list.
Just real anti-vegetation kind of thing.
That's right. It seems like the agrarian metaphors are off the menu.
Yeah. Okay, so in this essay, which may or may not have been productive of other things later in history, Bella is saying the genius of American civil religion is that it's actually answerable to something higher.
Yes, a higher power.
A higher power, undefined maybe, but a higher power.
We call it, we call it God in our documents.
Sure.
Have you ever read the essay?
From Bella?
Yeah.
No.
So it talks about the scriptures of America, like the Old Testament is the Declaration of Independence. The New Testament is the Gettysburg Address.
I see.
Blood and sacrifice is Lincoln.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Okay. So then when Trump gets up and talks about manifest destiny, I'm just wanting to clarify something.
He has no freaking idea what he's talking about.
Right. He's using this phrase that's charged with meaning, and except that he does not think.
It comes out of the Spanish-American War.
Yeah, we do not think that we're any longer answerable to anything. And so
that's how it appears. That's how it appears to me.
I see what you're saying.
That's crucial.
Yeah.
Like, and lots of my friends would argue that it would be really hard to defend Bella's idea of civil religion. But at least if you could defend it, it would work. But it's just it appears so dangerous that, it's just never gonna, like, we now see it in its most awful form.
Yeah. Okay, so that is a fair enough segue to another question that I asked you, which was, you've taught us. I mean, you just did it. You can't help but do it. You said Americanism is in your blood. Like we have
not just my blood.
No, you said that to us. Yes, blood. Yes, it's in our blood. It's in our blood. So in the early chapters of Tradition and Incarnation, you put the reader through this, that America has had an incredible impact on the way we think of religion. It's basically redefined what a religion is for us, and caused us to think that all the other ways of doing a religion or thinking of a religion are actually strange, when in reality ours is the strange notion. You just sort of lay out, without a lot of judgment, without a lot of evaluation, you just say, look, this is what we think religion is. It's a private matter of personal belief that's separated from daily life, shared daily life with other people. And I don't see anything in my current experience with my students, or just in my life, just as a Catholic in the United States, that suggests you were at all wrong about that. I think you're that's basically true.
Unfortunately, I am right about it.
Yeah. And I just wonder, now I know this maybe is like a weird or unfair question, or maybe even an annoying question, but 30 years later, after the book is written, would you add anything else that America is doing to the practice of Christianity on the one hand, or just our imagination when we hear the word religion, in addition to what you already said?
Just what we always say, that the silos, the digital silos make it much more intense. That, like here's an example. So in 2007, I think, Pope Benedict wrote, I think it was called Supremi Pastoris, which set up the Latin rite as one freestanding. And his idea, like you can read this in Bill Johnston's book, his idea was that all people in every parish would sometimes go to Mass in Latin and sometimes go to Mass in the Novus Ordo. And that these two things would, overlap each other, and that they would influence each other. And his ultimate goal was that the Mass, all Mass would become more reverent, because it kind of did become unreverent for a while
Mm.
there. Well, the poor guy wrote this 3 years after Facebook and,
Yeah.
the whole operation came into existence. And so we're never gonna have anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have no idea. I am a foreigner in this world, this digital world.
Yeah. So it's been whatever. What word do we use? Don't they use balkanized? Like the
Yeah.
digital thing is balkanized several elements of American Christianity. Not to say it hasn't happened elsewhere, but I don't know how to speak about elsewhere. But American Christianity, digital life has further separated it from shared daily life.
It seems.
Strongly enough, strictly enough, violently enough that you might want to use the word balkanized, tribalized, or something.
In other words, like the group of people called conservatives have more in common than a conservative Catholic and a liberal Catholic and a
Oh yeah, that's
communist.
Withnow said that in his book many, many years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, but now it's like bizarrely spread out. Like I've got more the conservative Catholic or the liberal Catholic's got more in common with the conservative Catholic in Maine has more in common with the conservative Catholic in Mississippi than he does with like the guy sitting next to him in the pew who's not a conservative or whatever,
Yeah.
So yeah, you found your tribe, digitally mediated.
And more people they're choosing to stick to their tribe.
Yeah.
And that's it. End of list. Got to get rid of all the other friends.
I don't know if they actually choose this,
That's all.
It appears that they do, but who knows?
It's got to be. It's common enough. It's got to be the path of least resistance, given the context.
It would seem to be the biggest challenge to education and to Christianity. That situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know how to solve it.
Yeah, they're
That's why we had you on here. So
well. We'll cross solutions off the list.
jeepers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I also just to maybe close that up a little bit. Unfortunately, it seems to me that the solution to those things are such boring and unpopular things such as diversity, tolerance, diversity. Things that aren't really. No one's jumping up and down in any stadiums for those quasi virtues anymore. So
Sure.
that's we've gotten ourselves into kind of a tough situation. Maybe I wonder.
Yeah. But I love what you said earlier, Dr. Portier, when this is not the center of the church.
Oh yeah,
That was a very helpful way of putting it.
this is so not the center of the church.
So peripheral.
And Pope Francis keeps trying to tell us that.
Explicitly, many times.
Yeah.
It's all over the encyclical and all of that.
That recent thing, was it a constitution or an exhortation? I can't remember. But at the last paragraph.
Sacred Heart?
No, before that. I just can't remember the title, but he like actually called out America at the end.
Just to be clear,
It was like a restatement of some major themes from Laudato Si, and the last paragraph he like just aims it right at America.
Yeah.
And more or less says, "This is your fault, guys." So
And the other thing is, what's really crazy is, like when Francis was here in 2015, he said, "God bless America" at the end of every one of his his things, his speeches, and he wasn't referring to this America. He was referring to the bicontinental thing, and he kept trying to tell us that.
Yeah.
And what we take out of that is the Gulf of America.
Yeah. We're really good at selective hearing. That's one of our national virtues.
Wow. Okay.
But anyway,
I think you actually, in a couple indirect ways, answered this question, but I'm just going to ask you again more pointedly. Was it worth it?
oh yeah.
Teaching theology, and why?
Well, because yes, it was worth it. It just made my life very rich, and I got to meet all these great students. I mean, there's hundreds of them. They're all over the place. It kept me alive. I don't know. It's just I was it how should I say, it increased my faith. I don't know. Yeah, it was worth it.
So we should keep going.
Okay, good. Whew.
Okay, I can live with that.
That's a solution.
Can you recommend a piece of media to us? Something you've been reading, something you've been listening to, something you've been watching, or all three? Whatever.
Well, 2 books that I read. One is, what's his name? The historian, St. Augustine.
Peter Brown.
Peter Brown, yeah. Peter Brown's biography. Autobiography, rather. I don't did either of you read it?
No.
It's really good, especially if you're a historian.
Yeah.
Well, we've all read something from Peter Brown at some point, so that's got to be interesting how he got to that point.
And then, he's nuts. He's like, these people are so you just don't you just think, okay, no, you can't do this. So now I'm reading about Robert Bellah, who was also nuts. And, they're just they're so driven.
Mm.
I mean, I think I'm driven. You guys probably think you're driven,
But we're not.
but
What you're saying is we're not.
not compared to these guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, those are 2 really good books.
Okay.
All right. Well, this brings us to Special Appendix A. Could you give us a blurb telling us why you think that the prophetic body is a Catholic book? Would you agree to do it?
Bill's daughter, Anathea Portier-Young, has written a new book called The Prophetic Body: Embodiment and Mediation in Biblical Prophetic Literature. In it, she proposes a new paradigm for understanding the prophetic witness in the Old Testament. She argues that the prophets' bodies are essential to how and what they mediate between God and Israel. The book draws from neuroscience, anthropology, and biblical scholarship to reframe our understanding of what the prophets were doing and how they were doing it. Portier-Young writes that embodied life is at the heart of the Hebrew Bible, but in the Western tradition, we have learned to denigrate the body, seeing it as separate from mind, spirit, and soul. The body is often seen as less important. Sometimes we even see the body as dishonorable or dangerous. As a result, we imagine prophecy to be a verbal and intellectual phenomenon. But from Portier-Young's perspective, the prophet's own body is not incidental to the work of prophecy. Rather, the body works in synergy with the prophet's thoughts and words.
Because it's about bodies. about mediation. Mediation is evil in certain Christian traditions.
We won't say who, but
So let me be the tourist. I don't know enough about your daughter's work, and I certainly don't know her at all, to know why she would find this assessment of her book frustrating or
No, she just didn't want to have it saddled with that.
siloed. Probably.
Gotcha.
She knew it was true.
I see.
She didn't want it to be listed as the prophetic body :
And there are these
theology.
Oxford has these 4 authors that, I don't know, they sent out some kind of an ad with 4 funky authors, and 3 of them were Catholics.
Yeah.
Because they're all writing about bodies and materiality.
Right.
Gotcha.
Like, we learned that materiality in bodies and mediation were not good.
Hmm.
And we need to get this directly from God.
Hmm.
None of this mediation stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that is a strikingly high church concept. I think we'll bring that to her and see what she has. Maybe that's the marketing issue, actually. It's like, should the novel be YA or is it literary fiction? That kind of an argument. Maybe it is what it is, but it's what's the little note on the inside of the dust cover gonna say?
See, you guys don't come from the culture where the kind of mainline Protestant culture of Paul Tillich and Karl Barth.
Right.
No, we read it, but it wasn't very compelling to me for whatever cultural reason, so I didn't.
That was the dominant culture of my youth. Like, we were outsiders to that. We were considered, I don't know, not deficient.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reading Bella is very interesting because Tillich is wandering around at Harvard while he's a young professor. They're talking about all this stuff that's very interesting. And now that's not the case. Now it's cool to be high church.
Mm.
Yeah, like Red Bull.
Like Baptists celebrate Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
I just think that's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, it has been an interesting shift to see, and I wrote it, and that's how I ended up at Duke, and ultimately probably a historical reason that would explain how I got to the Catholic Church.
Sure.
I was Southern Baptist growing up.
Yeah.
So I remember when we started doing Palm Sunday with the palms and everything.
Yeah.
And what did you think? Like,
Well, I think at that time I was young enough that I just thought that was, oh, that's a cool thing that we do. And I think if I would be lying if I didn't think, I became a United Methodist in high school, and that's partially how I ended up at Duke. And I think I just thought,
did you get a Methodist scholarship?
I did not. I wanted to be a deacon, so they thought, no, we don't need any of these deacons. We need elders, so you can pay for it yourself. So basically, I thought, wow, I can do more of this. I can do Eucharist every week now. You can only imagine what I thought when I found out as a Catholic I could do Eucharist every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's been I think a lot of us have sort of encountered the maybe older Protestant disembodiment Christianity, direct access, that whole thing. And I think sort of everyone's moving away from it in one way or another, but it's just about how you choose to do that. There were just endless books written by Protestant ministers while we were growing up. I mean that in the graduate school sense. So when we were in our late 20s, that were just like, I'm a Baptist and now it's cool to do rituals. And
Yeah.
have you heard the word liturgy before? Or the personal essays of discovering ritual and embodiment and incense. And I visited an Orthodox church. It's kind of wacky, right? But here are the 10 things we can learn, or the 25 books that have been written that are like Sabbath for Protestants, and
Right.
or for whatever. And I think it's pretty interesting. I'm sure that people have written about it, but I see us as participants in that movement.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think someone explaining it's not like I had to sit down with a professor who explained mediation to me, but through my like intellectual academic journey, and then also my like entrance into the Catholic Church. I mean, it was just about like liturgy, sacraments, and mediation. It's just like, oh, fine, okay, I see, okay, well, I can do that. I couldn't do the other thing.
Anybody can.
Well, literally anybody. And I tell you, Dr. Portier, your section on in the chapter on religion toward the end, when you're talking about like how are you gonna frame, or how are you gonna imagine what a religious experience is? Are you gonna go the analogical road or the dialectical route? And the students who care the most about that are the devout Catholic students who Angels of Super Thrift gives them a lot of permission. So in terms of like I asked, was this worth it? And you said, I've got all these students. There's hundreds of them. Well, you're sending out into the world, at least from our school, students who are a little bit more comfortable being just humans, who God can communicate with without having to use a burning bush or the some sort of strange avatar, but that can actually, they're addressable, they're seeable, they're hearable, and they are seen and heard by God, who can manifest the presence in any way necessary. And that Angels of Super Thrift really throws them for a loop, I think. There's struggle. Thank God you put that in there, though. If you had ended with analogical and dialectical, they cannot make heads or tails of that section. I just have to like walk them through it. They're just like, I don't even know what these words are. Why are you talking to me like this? It sounds like you're swearing at me, or I don't know what they.
Intense hand-holding.
Yeah, but then the payoff at Angels of Super Thrift is a really beautiful experience for a lot of them.
In Bill's book, Tradition and Incarnation, he writes that there are two approaches to understanding religious experience. One approach, he calls it the dialectical approach, emphasizes how the divine breaks into our everyday experience in a new and strange way. The other approach, which he calls an analogical approach, emphasizes how our daily experience can be a vessel through which God's loving presence is manifested to us. To illustrate the analogical approach, he tells the following story, which he calls the Angels of Super Thrift. Having argued that the world is full of potential manifestations of God, and that ordinary people experience God in their daily lives, good faith impels me to provide at least one example from my own religious experience. My wife is now a practicing physician. We have 3 children. During her years in medical school, as during my years in graduate school a decade earlier, we had to live apart for weeks at a time. This was often difficult and stressful. One particularly stressful night, we had a long-distance argument on the phone. It was an especially bad one. After I'd hung up for the second time, I felt terribly alone. As often happens at such times, I felt my situation was impossible and I didn't see how I could go on. I had to get out of the house. Depression draws me to food. So I got in my car and drove to the Super Thrift parking lot in Emmitsburg. I pulled into a parking space. God, I said, if you want me to keep doing this, you'd better send me some help. Then I put my head down on the steering wheel and cried. After a while, a wonderful thing happened. A red car pulled in beside me. The concerned and curious faces inside belonged to one of my closest friends and her daughter. They, of course, asked me if I was all right, and I said no. They stayed with me for a while and then went inside for their groceries. Soon I gathered enough energy to go inside too. I wanted to buy a 1-pound box of Cheez-Its, my medicine for emotional and spiritual ills. As I walked in the door, another wonderful thing happened. Another of my closest friends was standing in the checkout line. I must have looked pretty awful. When she saw me, she came right over and said, "You look like hell." Then, right in the middle of the Emmitsburg Super Thrift, she gave me a big hug. This didn't make everything all right, but I no longer felt so alone and impossible. Just as in the stories in the Bible, God had truly heard my prayer and sent not one but 2 angels to comfort me. I bought my Cheez-Its and went home and ate the whole box. My wife came home the next weekend, and we had our usual reconciliation. To the cynical eye, this is not a story about God or angels at all. It's simply about a couple of supermarket coincidences. After all, everyone in Emmitsburg goes to Super Thrift at least once a day. What makes it plausible for me to believe that God sent angels to comfort me? This is how I expect God to act. From my earliest childhood, when my mother listened to my prayers each night and taught me to say good night to God, through all the years of reading and hearing the stories about God in the scriptures, I have learned from my inheritance, my tradition, what God is like. This is the kind of thing I expect God to do. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens often enough that when it doesn't, I give God the benefit of the doubt. Was this a supernatural intervention? If we use that word, we are implying that God has violated the autonomy of the world. God has interrupted the normal course of things. But if God is not someone who lives outside of or separate from the world, but rather is the creator who gives to everyone life and breath and everything, then it would be preferable to speak of God's manifestations rather than God's intervention.
And I had a student last semester go through the first half of the book with me, and toward the end, we were just talking about his experience of reading it. And um, I mean, this kid's kneeling to receive the Eucharist, and he's an intense guy. He's an intense guy. And I was like, so what? And I knew that maybe some of what you said was maybe not intense enough or something. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to say it, you know. And uh, he got to the end of it, and I was like, how was this for you? Because I thought maybe it would be a little bit of a challenge to him. And he was like, he's just helping me relax a little bit. The book helped me relax a little bit, and I thought that was a really beautiful thing. It was something this guy needs, and so you're doing good work. You've done good work. Thanks for what you've done for our students.
Well, thank you.
Uh,
They still have a couple of 100 copies of it left.
well, we're buying them up slow but sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a hard time getting one for the library because we inexplicably didn't have one. But
What are they gonna do? Is it what happens? I guess you do a second printing or whatever. Is that?
Well, I don't know that they want to do another printing
Hmm.
policy. So I they I have to negotiate with them about the copyright.
Yeah.
And somebody like what's the St. Mary's Press,
Mm-hmm.
they could do the first part, the first few chapters that
Yeah.
people use. And I don't know. We could negotiate with that
Interesting.
if you're still going to use it.
I think we ought to get all the calligraphy students at our school together and get them to start making medieval bound copies of it, and then they'll have a whole collection of them. Or it's supposed to be Benedictines.
Yeah.
You have calligraphy students?
Oh, yeah, we do have a calligraphy program. Or not program, a class.
Huge tradition of it. We had Sister Leonardo was like a world-class calligrapher, and she taught classes here. And one of her students has carried on her tradition. Actually, I'm gearing up to do a little museum type exhibit on Sister Leonardo and her work in the library for Benedict.
Is she dead?
She has passed away. Yeah, that's why I have a lot of her class notebooks and her like 6 versions of her curriculum, and I have all these huge examples of her calligraphy. So we're gonna do some cool stuff with it. Her going back and forth with globally famous calligraphers.
So when we open the Mount Marty scriptorium, the first text will be Tradition and Incarnation.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Keep it in circulation.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. On vellum.
Well, thank you much for joining us. Is there you have any advice for us going out into the dark cold world after this interview? He has read the document and finds it satisfactory.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Silently satisfactory. All right. Well,
Thanks for being willing to do this.
Sure.
Good to see you.
You too.
The Benedictine Thought and Action podcast is produced by John Gladley and Jason Glurant. But really, we owe everything to our unpaid intern, Grayson Vibacek, who's on retreat at Monte Casino. We're edited by dogs and fact-checked by cats, so lower your expectations. Our friend Megan has a horse named Honey. We might get them involved. We'll see. The show is engineered by several children, which explains a lot. Our music was originally composed. Actually, is this even music? I can't tell. Our patron saint is Hilary of Poitiers. The voice you're hearing is your beloved Uncle Rich. He's on loan to us from Secor Laxators. He has been doing a long run of commercial voiceover work.